And welcome back to our Labor Day special. Union membership, it has been in decline, but labor, it still has political clout. The AFL-CIO, it has endorsed Hillary Clinton this go-round, saying that she shares the values of its 12-plus million members. And joining us now is Roger Clayman. He's executive director of the Long Island AFL-CIO, and he's kind enough to join us on the island. Roger, thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I saw a recent piece in USA Today talking about how with union wages depressed, it's gone across the board, and it's impacted workers, even if they're not in union shops. Talk about the state of labor today. The numbers, in many ways, speak for themselves as to we're at a low watermark point compared to, for a long time, there's been a natural digression, if you will, of total members. How has that impacted your power in terms of arbitration, et cetera?
Well, the following numbers are difficult to overcome in most parts of the country. It does reduce the power of the union movement, and that's one of the reasons that we're solidly supporting Hillary Clinton. She believes in collective bargaining, and Donald Trump believes in right to work. So we are solidly behind Hillary Clinton because she can boost those numbers for labor and help us build a stronger country.
Roger, I want to get into the politics. Obviously, we're less than 70 days out from the election, but to put a finer point on it from your end, put a face on your membership and some of the struggles that maybe a lot of people don't see and how it's impacted wages, take-home pay. Obviously, cost of living's gone up. As we mentioned in the prior segment, a generation ago, maybe it was one person working in the household. Now the norm certainly is both husband and wife are working in a married household, et cetera. Talk about some of the challenges you're facing in 2016 that maybe you didn't face in 2000.
There's been a continuing trend of inequality, which has reduced wages for the American worker. This started in the 1970s and continues today. So there is pressure on union families to bring in more money. There's more than one worker in the family. Women who may have been at home previously are in the workforce. So there's a lot of pressure to keep people employed and to find better jobs and to raise pay for our members. And that's the challenge of our labor movement, is to find good paying jobs, to create these jobs, and to help build a growing economy. Inequality is something that our members perceive, and it's one of the reasons they believe that the system is rigged against them.
Certainly this election season, we heard a lot of the talk about that, I think, with Bernie Sanders, and even to a certain degree, Donald Trump tapped into this idea that globalization has screwed the regular working guy, and more than that, the system stacked against them. You mentioned at the top, your group's endorsing Hillary Clinton. Why her and why not Donald Trump?
Well, Donald Trump has a history of opposing workers and their organizations, unions. He talks a lot about globalization and trade and plays into the fears that most workers have, which are well-founded, that the system hasn't worked for them, that we've lost jobs in this country, they've been moved offshore. What he says he can do about it is unrealistic. And if you take the experience we've had with Donald Trump himself, his products that he sells on the market are made in China, made in Bangladesh. He doesn't believe in supporting and strengthening unions, which is the best way to protect workers' level of pay. But our members have grave concerns about how we're going to address globalization. And we have to do this by strengthening workers' rights and making certain that in future trade agreements, workers' rights are respected not only in America, but with our trading partners. The goal of any trading agreement should be to raise wages, create good jobs, and create prosperity in the United States. We haven't succeeded in doing that in any of the trade agreements since the passage of NAFTA. We think that there's certainly a better chance for us to create prosperity with Hillary Clinton as the president, as opposed to somebody who believes that workers are already being paid too much. And he's a billionaire who doesn't support the minimum wage because he believes workers are getting too much money already.
Do you believe NAFTA has been good or bad for the American worker? And as it relates to TPP, what are you guys going to insist upon from the next president that's going to be good for the American worker?
Well, we're going to insist that the next president renegotiates trade agreements and that the TPP model just doesn't work. It doesn't work for several reasons. Most significantly, it doesn't address currency manipulation, and that's got to be a part of any trade agreement that we negotiate, that we insist that our allies and our trading partners deal with their currencies in a way that's not totally unfair and creates an unfair advantage for American products. We have to insist that there's respect for workers' rights, that the countries that we're bringing into a regional trade agreement are not given a long period of time with preferential agreements before they begin to correct their labor laws, which essentially outlaw union organization. We have to make certain that our trade agreements respect the importance of manufacturing in this country and don't put us at a bigger advantage, a bigger disadvantage by allowing markets to become saturated, such as the steel market, which is already overproducing, and allowing a country like Vietnam to put a lot more product onto the market than the market can bear.
We've seen when they break down who the voters are for the two candidates, for Donald Trump, the white blue-collar worker is breaking to him in bigger numbers, certainly than his opponent. My question is, I know you guys have formally endorsed, and you said so in this interview, Hillary Clinton. How much does that carry in terms of weight for your membership? And in swing states, in the Rust Belt, for example, where the labor vote's very important, how much do you think they're going to follow your lead when they go in the ballot box and vote Hillary and not Trump?
We've always had success in getting our members to follow the lead of the organization when we communicate with them. So in those swing states, we will be talking to our members one-on-one. Their local unions will be communicating with them in the workplace. They'll receive phone calls, they'll receive letters, they'll have people come to their doors, and they'll talk about the key differences between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton believes that there ought to be tax fairness in this country, that the rich ought to pay their fair share, as should the corporations. Donald Trump wants to have tax cuts which benefit mainly the very wealthy and would add more than $12 trillion in debt to our country over a 10-year period. We have to talk about that. We have to explain why that will enlarge inequality and put our workers further behind and make our economy less functional. We have to talk about union rights. We have to talk about the fact that Donald Trump, when he's had this opportunity to recognize unions, has done the opposite. He's trying to stop a unionization drive at his facility in Las Vegas. Donald Trump is against the minimum wage. Hillary Clinton believes that high wages are important for our economy and to building a middle class. So these are issues that have to be brought to working families one-on-one. And when we do that, history has shown we can make a big difference.
Is some of the problems that unions have had of their own making in terms of perception, and certainly we saw the fight play out in Wisconsin when Governor Walker basically made it a campaign promise that he followed through on, and he survived a recall. My point is, you know, the perception some have that it takes three guys, to screw with the light bulb, or that they get certain preferential treatment the rest of the private sector doesn't in terms of contributions, et cetera. To that end, does there almost need, from your eyes, to be a re-education of the public what unions do and what they stand for, instead of being maybe defined by others?
Well, I don't think we can take responsibility for the actions of Governor Walker. This is a trend of Republican governors who were elected who carried out a radical agenda. There's an American Legislative Exchange Council agenda. It's the Koch brothers agenda. They carried it out in states where it was unnecessary to suppress wages and suppress unions to build a stronger economy. What happened was, following the recession of 2008, there was a trend of disappointment with elected officials for reasons that had nothing to do with working people. And Republican governors and Republican legislators took this opportunity to roll back workers' rights and to roll back the labor movements in their states. We're finding that this is at the detriment of their economy. In Kansas, this experiment with budget cutting has meant that the economy has slipped badly, that education has been starved, and that working people are paying a very severe price, and they're starting to recognize it and going to the ballot box to do something about it. Governor Walker's a radical. His success has very little to do with anything that was done and the wages that were paid to working people in Wisconsin. We've been fortunate that we've had cooperation from government in New York. We found that Governor Cuomo was instrumental in helping us pass a higher minimum wage. He was instrumental in helping us pass family leave so that people can take care of their families when they're sick or for the birth of a child. These are the kind of policies that build a stronger society and a stronger middle class. Governor Walker is way off base and will ultimately, I think, it'll be demonstrated that the economy is hurt by those kinds of regressive policies.
Roger, I certainly appreciate a few minutes with you, and I wish you the best on Labor Day. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody, when we come back here, a look at an issue that in many ways changed the way that we look at labor and also worker rights, a tragedy that helped to usher in the dawn of unions. Andrew Whitman's look back at the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire and its lasting legacy.